In the vast tapestry of human history, few mysteries run as deep or stretch as wide as the origins of the Proto-Indo-European people. They left behind no monuments of stone, no soaring temples, and no written chronicles of their own. Yet somehow, this shadowy civilization would influence nearly half of the world's languages, shaping echoes that still resonate in the ways billions speak, think, and name the world around them. Tonight, we journey thousands of years into the past, far earlier than the pyramids of Egypt, earlier than the first ziggurats of Mesopotamia, to a time when Europe and much of Asia were wild, open, and untamed. A time when a mysterious people roamed the great steppes, carrying with them ideas, beliefs, technologies, and linguistic seeds that would one day blossom into Greek, Latin, Persian, Sanskrit, and dozens more. Who were the Proto-Indo-Europeans? Were they one unified culture, or a cluster of tribes tied together by language and memory? How did they spread so widely, from Ireland to India, without leaving behind grand cities? And how did their worldview travel through countless ages to influence the myths of Rome, the hymns of India, the stories of Scandinavia, and even modern English itself? This documentary peels back the layers of myth, archaeology, linguistics, and genetic science to uncover a civilization that lived in obscurity but shaped the destiny of whole continents. Welcome to the enigmatic roots of Proto-Indo-European civilizations. A journey into a forgotten world, one that whispers to us not through ruins, but through the words we speak every day. Let us begin where all origins begin, with the land, the people, and the spark that set their long journey into motion. To understand the Proto-Indo-Europeans, we must first travel back to a world before borders, kingdoms, or written memory, back to around 4,500 to 3,500 BCE. The Ice Age had long retreated, leaving behind vast open grasslands stretching from Eastern Europe deep into Central Asia. It was here, in this enormous expanse known as the Pontic Caspian steppe, that the earliest ancestors of the Indo-European world began to take shape. This region was unlike any other. Endless horizons, rolling fields of wild grasses, and herds of animals migrating with the seasons created a landscape that demanded resilience and rewarded mobility. The people who lived here, later identified through archaeological cultures like the Yamnaya, were pastoralists, herders of cattle, sheep, and horses who mastered the open plains. The horse, more than anything else, defined the Proto-Indo-European story. This was not merely an animal, it was a revolution. Early domestication of the horse gave these people unmatched mobility. They could travel farther, trade wider, and eventually expand faster than any society before them. With wagons and later chariots, they carried their families, their animals, and their stories across continents. But who were they culturally? Archaeologists paint them as tall, rugged people who lived in extended family groups. Their homes were simple, often made of wood or felt, adapted for a life that moved with the seasons. They buried their dead under mounds, kurgans, filled with offerings of weapons, ornaments, and sometimes sacrificed animals. These burial mounds, scattered across the steppes, became silent markers of a civilization that lived more in movement than settlement. Yet the true clue to their identity comes not from artifacts, but from language. Through painstaking linguistic reconstruction, scholars discovered astonishing similarities between Sanskrit and Latin, Persian and Greek, Slavic and Germanic tongues. Words for mother and father or son or water and horse shared ancient roots. This linguistic web revealed a common ancestor, a proto-language spoken by a single prehistoric culture. Their mythology, too, hints at a shared origin. Many Indo-European cultures told stories of a sky father, a divine thunder wielder, a sacred fire, and a cosmic struggle between order and chaos. These echoes, scattered across millennia, trace back to the Proto-Indo-European worldview. By 3000 BCE, waves of migration began radiating outward. Some groups traveled west into Europe, blending with local farming populations. Others moved south into Anatolia and the Near East. Still others journeyed east into Central Asia and eventually into the Indian subcontinent. Their expansion wasn't the conquest of an empire. It was the slow, steady movement of people whose language, customs, and innovations quietly reshaped the world. Thus began the legacy of the Proto-Indo-Europeans, a story written not in stone, but in the living voices of humanity.
To grasp the Proto-Indo-European world, we must imagine a society without cities, palaces, or towering monuments. Their greatness was not carved into rock. It lived in their stories, their rituals, and the structure of their daily lives. Family stood at the center of their world. The Proto-Indo-Europeans lived in clans, tight-knit extended families led by a patriarch, often the eldest male. These were more than simple households. They were economic units, spiritual communities, and the guardians of tradition. Honor, loyalty, and ancestral memory guided every aspect of life. Their homes were modest but practical, often circular or rectangular structures made of wood, reeds, or hide. Inside, families gathered around a communal fire, both a source of warmth and a sacred symbol. Fire was more than a tool. It represented purity, protection, and the link between humans and the divine. Many later Indo-European religions, from Roman hearth rituals to Vedic fire ceremonies, carry this ancient echo. The Proto-Indo-European religion was a tapestry of powerful deities and cosmic forces. Their reconstructed pantheon includes a sky father, Dyaus Piet Tutor, a thunder god who wielded lightning, a goddess of the dawn, twins connected to health and protection, and a great mother associated with the earth. Their myths spoke of battles between gods and serpents, of worlds emerging from chaos, and of sacred natural elements, sun, water, fire, and sky. These myths didn't exist only in stories. They shaped rituals marking birth, marriage, death, and seasonal cycles. Burials, richly adorned with grave goods, reveal a belief in an afterlife where strength and honor continued beyond death. Economically, the Proto-Indo-Europeans thrived as pastoralists. Cattle were central to their wealth, not just as food, but as symbols of prosperity and status. Herds provided milk, meat, hides, and bone tools. Sheep offered wool for clothing. Horses granted mobility, prestige, and eventually military advantage. Agriculture did exist among them, though on a smaller scale than in settled farming societies. They cultivated grains, gathered wild plants, and traded with neighboring cultures. Their economy was flexible, adapting to both the bounty and harshness of the steppe. Trade played a crucial role. Amber, metalwork, textiles, and livestock moved along ancient routes connecting the steppes to Europe and Asia. This network spread not only goods, but ideas, rituals, technologies, and language patterns that would transform distant lands. Art was simple but meaningful. Designs on pottery, carvings on bone, ornaments of copper or gold, all suggest a people who valued beauty but prioritized function. Their symbolic motifs often mirrored natural elements, animals, or spiritual signs. Their society, though patriarchal, recognized the significant role of women. Women managed households, crafted textiles, and participated in rituals. Some burial sites reveal female figures laid to rest with weapons or high-status ornaments, indicating positions of respect or authority. Language played an extraordinary role in shaping their identity. Proto-Indo-European was rich with words for kinship, nature, spiritual concepts, emotions, and warfare. Through linguistic reconstruction, we can glimpse their world. Words for wheel, yoke, and horse reflect technological advancements. Words for king, guest, and stranger reveal social structure and diplomacy. But perhaps the most striking feature of their society was its adaptability. The Proto-Indo-Europeans thrived not through empire, but through resilience, able to survive harsh winters, long migrations, and cultural encounters. They learned from those they met, blended, adapted, and passed their traditions across generations. In every aspect of their culture, mythology, kinship, economy, and language, they cultivated a legacy that would outlive them by thousands of years.
Though lacking monumental architecture, the Proto-Indo-Europeans reshaped human history through innovations that altered the course of civilization. First among their achievements was the early domestication and widespread use of the horse. This breakthrough revolutionized transportation, communication, and warfare. Mounted herders could manage vast territories, move quickly, and expand farther than any other prehistoric society. The horse became an extension of their identity, their freedom, and their power. They were also among the earliest groups to develop wheeled vehicles. The invention of the wheel, and more importantly, the combination of wheel, axle, and chassis, opened a new era of mobility. Their wagons carried families, goods, and taui and culture across thousands of miles. Later, the chariot, light and swift, would transform warfare from Egypt to India. Metallurgy flourished in their world. Copper and early bronze tools made farming more efficient and hunting more effective. Weapons like axe heads, spear points, and blades reflected a society skilled in both survival and combat. Their linguistic innovation might be their greatest legacy. Proto-Indo-European is the ancestor of hundreds of modern languages, forming the largest linguistic family on Earth. The complexity of its grammar, cases, verb systems, and rich vocabulary shows a people advanced in abstract thought and communication. They also developed early social and legal systems encoded through tradition. Words reconstructed for law, justice, oath, and duty indicate societies governed not merely by force, but by shared values and binding agreements. Spiritual and mythological traditions contributed to countless later religions. The Sky Father became Zeus, Jupiter, and Diaus Pitar. The thunder god evolved into Thor, Indra, and Perun. Their myth of a heroic warrior fighting a serpent appears in cultures from Greece to Persia. Finally, their migratory success itself is an achievement. Managing to spread language, cultural practices, and economic techniques across half the world without a centralized empire. Their innovations were not in stone or steel, but in ideas, technologies, and traditions that would endure long after their mounds were overgrown by grass. The Proto-Indo-Europeans left no written records naming their leaders, yet their memory survives through linguistic reconstruction and the legends of descendant civilizations. These echoes give us silhouettes, mythic reflections of real figures who once walked the steppes. One such figure is the archetypal kingship figure, reconstructed through words and myths. The Proto-Indo-European term for king, ha3 regs, appears in Latin rex, Sanskrit raja, and Gaelic ri. This suggests a respected leader who guided the clan in war, rituals, and seasonal migrations. Another figure emerges from heroic legends shared across Indo-European cultures, a warrior who battles a monstrous serpent or dragon. In Greek mythology, this becomes Zeus fighting Typhon. In Norse myths, Thor confronts Jormungandr. In Vedic hymns, Indra slays the serpent Vritra. Linguists trace these myths to a Proto-Indo-European hero, a warrior leader whose triumph became the symbol of cosmic order over chaos. We also find traces of a spiritual leader, ancestor to priests of later societies. The Proto-Indo-European word pagos relates to divine distribution, suggesting early religious specialists who mediated between the clan and the gods, tended sacred fires, and preserved oral traditions. Female figures also emerge from grave evidence. Some women were buried with ornate jewelry, horse gear, or weapons, indicating roles beyond domestic life. These may reflect matriarchs, priestesses, or leaders whose authority shaped their communities. Although the Proto-Indo-Europeans never recorded their heroes or rulers, their memory lived on through myth, transformed into gods, kings, and legendary champions in later civilizations. Their shadows stretch across thousands of years, reminding us that even in prehistory, leadership left a mark that time could not erase. Life on the steppes was beautiful but brutal. The Proto-Indo-Europeans faced constant challenges, environmental, internal, and external, that shaped their resilience and expansion. Harsh winters tested survival every year. Food shortages, storms, and long migrations pushed communities to their limits. Adaptation was essential. The invention of wool clothing, improved herding, and strategic movement allowed them to endure climates that would have crushed weaker societies. Conflicts between clans were common. Competition over land, water, and grazing routes sometimes erupted into raids or battles. Weapons found in graves, axes, spears, and early swords hint at a world where strength and unity were essential for survival. Their expansion also brought them into contact with other cultures. Some encounters were peaceful, involving trade and cultural exchange. Others turned violent. As Proto-Indo-European groups entered Europe, they encountered Neolithic farming societies. Archaeological evidence reveals both blending and conflict, moments of cultural fusion and moments of displacement. In the East, groups moving toward Central Asia faced rival nomadic cultures. Control over trade routes, pastures, and hunting grounds sparked tensions that shaped the region for centuries. Nature itself was an unpredictable adversary. Climate fluctuations around 3000 BCE altered rainfall patterns and temperatures, forcing pastoralists to adapt or migrate farther. Droughts reduced pasture lands, floods disrupted seasonal cycles. But perhaps the most significant challenge was internal, the pressure of maintaining unity across vast distances. As different groups migrated, their traditions, accents, and beliefs evolved. Over time, the once unified Proto-Indo-European world began to fragment. Culturally, linguistically, and geographically, this fragmentation wasn't a collapse, but a transformation. Their identity changed as they blended with new populations, adopted new technologies, and faced new environments. Conflict, for the Proto-Indo-Europeans, was not a single event. It was a constant force. Yet through every struggle, they adapted, survived, and carried their legacy onward. Civilizations usually fall with a dramatic collapse, but the Proto-Indo-Europeans did something far more remarkable. They didn't vanish. They grew, changed, and dissolved into the very cultures they helped create. By around 2500 BCE, their migrations had radiated across continents. Groups settling in Europe gave rise to early Germanic, Celtic, and Italic peoples. Others in the south evolved into Hittites and other Anatolian cultures. Those moving east became ancestors of Indo-Iranian groups, whose descendants would shape ancient Persia and the Vedic world of India. Their transformation was gradual. As they settled new lands, they blended with local populations. Languages diverged, customs adapted, myths shifted. The once unified Proto-Indo-European identity became dozens of distinct civilizations. Archaeologically, the Yamnaya culture dissolved into new cultures like the corded ware in Europe and the Andronovo in Central Asia. Each carried fragments of the old ways, burial mounds, horse culture, linguistic patterns, but evolved them into something new. This was not a disappearance. It was evolution on a grand scale. The Proto-Indo-Europeans ceased to exist not because they were destroyed, but because they became too widespread to remain one people. They turned into Greeks, Romans, Celts, Slavs, Persians, Indo-Aryans, and many more cultures that would shape classical and medieval history. Their transformation stands as one of the most profound turning points in human civilization. A prehistoric culture dissolving into dozens of future empires. Today, the Proto-Indo-European legacy is alive in ways most people never realize. Every time someone says mother, brother, night, or star, they speak echoes of a language spoken thousands of years ago on the Eurasian steppe. Modern English, Hindi, Spanish, Russian, German, Persian, Greek. Over 3 billion people speak languages descended from Proto-Indo-European roots. Their myths became the foundation of countless religions and stories. Their gods evolved into Zeus, Odin, Indra, Jupiter, and countless others. Their heroic serpent slayer myth echoes in legends from Europe to Asia. Their innovations, horse domestication, wheeled vehicles, pastoral economics, created patterns that would define nomadic and settled societies for millennia. Even modern identity, from European cultures to South Asian traditions, carries subtle traces of Proto-Indo-European worldview. Ideas about family, honor, leadership, and the sacredness of natural elements. The Proto-Indo-Europeans are not gone. They speak through us, live through our stories, and survive in the rhythms of our languages. Thousands of years ago, on windswept plains stretching beyond the horizon, a small and scattered people began a journey they never intended to define the world. They carried no flag, built no empire, and left no towering monuments behind. Yet their footsteps carved invisible paths across continents. Paths that would one day become highways of culture, language, and belief. Their voices may be lost to time, but the echoes remain. In every word spoken from Dublin to Delhi, in every myth of sky gods and thunder wielders, in every family lineage tracing back through the fog of prehistory, the Proto-Indo-Europeans live on. They remind us that history is not written only by kings and conquerors. Sometimes, the greatest legacies are left by those who simply lived, moved, adapted, and shared their world with others. The story of the Proto-Indo-Europeans is not the story of a fallen empire, but of a civilization that became the roots of many. A civilization that traveled through time not in stone, but in sound, in language, memory, and spirit. And so, as the sun sets over the ancient steppes where their journey began, we are left with a simple truth. Sometimes the civilizations we see the least leave behind the greatest gifts. This was the enigmatic roots of Proto-Indo-European civilizations. A story older than writing, yet still spoken today.